It was announced in Singapore that Renault would stop supplying Red Bull from 2019 onwards. So do you think that this stems from the criticism that the team has aimed at Renault? Like, their fallout has been pretty gradual. There's been highs and lows. They've come back together. They have won races, as we know. But it's never really been patched up, has it?
I think it would have been interesting to be a fly on the wall for some of the meetings between Cyril Abiteboul, the head of Renault, and Dr. Helmut Marko, the head of Red Bull Motorsports programme, because Dr. Marko doesn't hold back when he's unhappy about things, and as we know, Renault let them down on quite a few occasions earlier on. I think it's ultimately very disappointing. You know, Red Bull Racing and Renault won 4 World Championships together, and now they seem set on parting ways. I think also Renault must be looking at the fact that by 2019, Renault ought to be trying to challenge to win the championship, which means beating Red Bull Racing. I think that also sheds an interesting light on the McLaren decision for Renault, because maybe they feel quite confident that they can produce a better car than McLaren in the fullness of time. So yeah, it's a shame to see that partnership fall apart, but what it does mean is that Red Bull, whatever happens, are going to be looking for a future elsewhere, be that with Honda or be it with someone else.
Because, you know, you'd have to say at the beginning of the year we weren't expecting, well, we were expecting a lot from Red Bull before testing, and then when the season started that dropped off, but they've actually had a reasonable year, okay, on Daniel Ricciardo's side of the garage at least.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it just is a really interesting conundrum what comes next, because you've got Toro Rosso with Honda, you've now got Red Bull, who are going to be out on a limb in a year's time, but obviously have some form of plan. I mean, everybody keeps saying, well, it'll be Aston Martin that'll provide engines. Well, Aston Martin, it's a very nice outfit, but it's, in global terms, it's very, very tiny. And the only way they could make engines is in partnership with your old mob at Cosworth or somebody else. If they took Honda, then there's a clear branding conflict with Aston Martin. So I'm assuming that Christian Horner's got something up his sleeve that we don't know about. So what is it? We don't know. We'll find out in the next year or so, I guess. That
brings me on to your tweet, actually. So, are Toro Rosso on the market? Is Mateschitz tiring of F1 and the Red Bull adventure? And can Aston Martin really make an F1 engine? Lots of questions there. What are your answers?
No answers. There are no answers.
That's why you asked the questions.
That's why I asked the questions.
Maybe Mark could answer the questions.
Toro Rosso, I think there's got to be... I mean, they've been up for sale effectively for about 10 years or something. And I don't think Mr. Mateschitz would look back if he got rid of them. So that would be an entertaining proposition for Honda.
To him?
Not really.
I mean, team?
I think all that's kind of come to grief a bit now, hasn't it? Don't you think?
Well, just in terms of the young driver programme, I mean, it's
a very expensive way to run a young.
He's got a lot of money.
He sure has got a lot of money, and I think that in the fullness of time, Red Bull may well reduce to a single team, and there have been opportunities for other people to buy Toro Rosso in the past. Toro Rosso is not the only team that's on the market to be sold at the moment. Force India have a question mark over them, and there are people hovering around that team as well. But I think for Mateschitz and Red Bull, at least in the medium term, I think Formula One's going to continue to be at the centre of what they're going to be doing. So I think Red Bull Racing are definitely safe. In terms of can Aston Martin do an engine, Aston Martin are producing a hypercar, not a supercar, but a hypercar next year called the Aston Martin Valkyrie. It's designed by Adrian Newey at Red Bull. It's got a Cosworth engine in the back of it. The Cosworth relationship with Aston Martin is a very good one, very close one. And there's no doubt that for 2021, when you look at who attended the engine working group meeting just before the summer, Cosworth were there, and Aston Martin and Red Bull enjoy a terrific relationship, and Christian Horner referred to that at the weekend. Are all the pieces in place? I think they are. The money can be found to do that programme. I think the really interesting thing as well is that for McLaren, come 2021, they may also do their own engine. And could it be the case that actually an organisation like Aston Martin and McLaren comes together and develops an engine which both teams could use in 2021? That's not beyond the realms of possibility.
So do you think more manufacturers will come into the sport ahead of 2021?
I think for sure we're going to see that. Porsche have already acknowledged the fact that they're looking at Formula One. I think the really interesting thing in world motorsport at the moment is the fact that with Formula E attracting so much attention from the car manufacturers because of the electric powertrain technology, actually Formula One has not been damaged by that. In fact, car manufacturers are beginning to say, actually there are two main forms of motorsport that seem to appeal to us. Formula One with these hybrid petrol-electric engines, ultimate in performance, massive global audiences, it's the pinnacle of motorsport, and then there's Formula E. So for Porsche, for Audi potentially, I think Formula One holds quite a lot of appeal. And I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that we'll see a Toyota or a BMW return to Formula One if those engine regulations in 2021 are put together in the way that people expect in terms of the technology and also the cost of competing.